losers from the 2026 NBA Draft. Welcome to the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Andrew. Mitchell, let's do this thing. Mitchell is joining me, and what we are going to do is we're going to name off some winners and losers from a 9-cat and points perspective. So we're going to focus on 9-cat first, and this is how it's going to go, Mitchell. I haven't explained the rules to him yet. We're going to do 3 winners, 3 losers. We can't obviously pick the same one. You're going to go first on the winners. I'm going to go first on the losers, and then the order will switch for when we discuss the points league side of things. Mitchell, how do you feel about the first 2 rounds of the draft? You're a Warriors fan. How do you feel about how your team did? Just give us your thoughts before we get into this here.
Yeah, so with the Warriors, I feel like I'm fine with the Yaxel pick, given, they want a rookie to come in and contribute right away with Stephen Curry, right? The last couple of picks, I guess, besides Pajemski, like a Kuminga, Moses Moody, a James Wiseman, they needed some more maturing in their games, a little bit of seasoning. But there's no time for that anymore. Stephen Curry turned 38 this year. He's going to turn 39 next year. And the window is closing. So they need a producer with Yaxel Linderborg, who's going to be 24 years old by the time the season starts. Crazy, I know, but he provides the prototypical 3-and-D guy, 6'8", 7'4" wingspan, crazy measurables. He could shoot, he could stretch the floor, he could rebound, he could pass a little bit. The upside isn't there, I guess you can say long term, but that's completely fine because we're looking at a 2 to 3 year window. However, I was really hoping for a Mara there to kind of fill that passing big man rim protector role that Andrew Bogut filled back in 2014, 2015, and 2016. That would have been nice because we know that Mara is a great passer. He can protect the rim. He's not going to stop the ball. He's a high IQ big man where, Kerr really utilizes very well. It's not like anything like a James Wiseman who just relies on his physical tools and natural athleticism. So a little disappointed on that end because he was right there for the taking. And then the pick after the OKC Thunder took Mara as a nice little stash. Now that they just pretty much re-signed Isaiah Hartenstein in a new 3-year deal. So, those are my thoughts on the Warriors selection.
All right. Very good. Very good. So we'll see how that ends up turning out. And shout out to Andrew Bogut. You had me reminiscing about his time on the Bucks when he was an absolute animal. So shout out to him. I hope he's doing well these days. All right. So Mitchell, when we get going here, you're going to be the first one to select from the winners, which means you will be selecting 2 out of these 3 winners. And, as we select our winners and losers, this doesn't necessarily reflect like our view on the player themselves, the kind of archetype that the player is, but it's more so a view of their landing spot from the draft. Some guys went to the perfect place. Some guys went to a place that we were not quite too fond of. But as we were talking about today, on YouTube especially, you will be able to see our big board, which is going to be pulled up. We will be going through the big board as we were talking about each of these prospects. It is version 5 of our big board released today. We are recording as of Friday. And you can find that at anglefantasybasketball.com. Completely free, 9-cat Dynasty big board. All right. So you have the first winner of the 2026 NBA draft from a Dynasty perspective. Mitchell, who's it going to be?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and combine 3 players just because.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, 3.
I mean, this counts as only one because I'm going to do a real quick
a 2-piece and a soda. Is that what I'm hearing right now?
It's a 3-piece. Okay. So I think the first 3 selections are all winners, and I'm just going to put them as one of my winners just because everybody already knows at this point that Cameron Boozer, AJ Debonsa, and Darren Peterson are great fantasy assets. They're great dynasty assets because of what they can provide all across the board. And I want to combine them just because all 3 are in the perfect fit, right? The Washington Wizards, they needed a small forward, right? They needed a go-to scorer, face the franchise guy. They got that in AJ Debonsa. The Utah Jazz, they had a void at the shooting guard position. They have their starting point guard in Keontae George. Lauri Markkanen likes to play the jumbo small forward like we've seen in Cleveland, right? he's been great, even at a higher level than those Cleveland days, of course. They just acquired Jaren Jackson Jr., who likes to play the 4. And then they have Walker Kessler. So Darren Peterson slides right in where he can be optimized in that supercharged Ray Allen type role. Not going to have the on-ball reps, so that's okay, especially in his first 2 or 3 years. He's just going to be that go-to scorer, plug and play, bang a lot of threes, play really good defense. And then Cameron Boozer, Jaren Jackson Jr. just got shipped out to the Utah Jazz at the trade deadline last season. And there's an open and gaping void where Santi Aldama, while we like him, not the number one long-term fit at the power forward spot. And Zach Edey is a great defensive big man who can really compensate for Cameron Boozer's, let's say, deficiencies on the defensive end. But for fantasy, that doesn't matter because Cam Boozer gets a good amount of steals. So Cameron Boozer, he's going to be in a great spot. All three are going to start where they were drafted for the teams that they were drafted. And those are my quick high-level overview of my first 3 winners. And I'm just going to combine them as one in one sake because I think that needs to be at least highlighted in this video.
So perhaps your pick then is all of tier 1. We do have a tier breakdown for our Dynasty Big Board. So that is Mitchell's pick for our winner. His first winner of today is all of tier 1. All right, so now it's my turn to pick a winner. And as much as I would like to go down to tier 2 and immediately pick Darius Acuff Jr., who I do think was a big winner of the draft, there's not much else going on in Sacramento. So shout out to him. But I want to go a little bit further down because people will have questions, especially towards the back end of a lottery, or maybe you're in the second round of a dynasty draft in like a 12 or 14 team league, or you're in, later lottery range, 20s picks, something along that line. Sergio de la Rea, a Spanish player on the Dallas Mavericks. When he was initially drafted, it was to the New York Knicks. And obviously, like our initial reaction on the live draft stream, make sure to check that out if you missed it. We had Dizzle Dynasty there, Noah Rubin there, tons of fun. But our initial reaction was, oh no, that sucks for Sergio. Obviously, he's going to stay overseas because this happened right after the Knicks took just basically a little bit of money from the Lakers to move from 24 to 25. So we're like, okay, Dolan's obviously trying to save like $100,000 here. So obviously another way to save money is Sergio remaining overseas. But then he got traded to the Dallas Mavericks, and that is what put him firmly into the winners conversation of today's episode. So 6'7" point guard, so a jumbo point guard, someone that we love to see. Pretty much all three of us at Angle are pretty infatuated with jumbo pass dribble shoot types of guys. They're always so viable for fantasy, and especially in Dynasty, they tend to work out pretty well too. But who are we looking at in Dallas? Aside from Kyrie Irving, we're looking at maybe like Ryan Nembhard, Brandon Williams. So De La Rea represents the most like draft capital among those guys besides Kyrie Irving, because Nembhard last year was a undrafted two-way player, and I don't even recall exactly how they got Brandon Williams, but I know for sure he wasn't like a first-round draft pick or anything along those lines. So there is a bit of stock here for De La Rea if we're talking draft capital and incentive to play him. We know that Kyrie's tenure in Dallas isn't going to last too much longer, whether if that's he's going to stay there for maybe a couple of years, maybe he gets traded, or maybe his just role starts to wind down, whatever it be. But for now, we expect Kyrie Irving to be the starting point guard. But I think this is a great opportunity for De La Rea to be moving in as the backup point guard. There's possibility for him and Kyrie to be on the floor at the same time. There's not a ton of competition for him in terms of the guard department. Like if he was a front court player, I'd have a different concern. Like I do like that the Mavericks drafted Morez Johnson, but he does have PJ Washington, Cooper Flagg, Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford to compete with for front court minutes. So De La Rea's path is a bit smoother. We have an often injured Kyrie Irving and two guys who were basically undrafted, or again, I can't remember off the top of my head how Brandon Williams necessarily got there. But this, first off, from a 9-cat perspective, we can get the scoring, a little bit of rebounds, good assists, some steals. Point guards are always super favorable to 9-cat in general, but really it's the opportunity that we're talking about here. And what a swing of emotion it was seeing him go from New York to Dallas. It was, oh, he's staying in Spain, to, oh my gosh, there's a serious NBA role being opened up for him here. So I wonder if you agree on this one, Mitch. I'll let you chime in for a little bit here, but this is also a big reason why he moved up drastically on our big board. He's now at the top of tier 6 at number 20 overall. I think he moved up like 7 or 8 spots, maybe like 6 to 8 spots, something around there. So pretty big rise from him. We definitely like this landing spot a lot.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the landing spot, especially because of the gaping need for a starting caliber point guard. The Mavericks were kind of shifting in and out. Ryan Nembhard, Brandon Williams, Kyrie plays more of a shooting guard. Cooper Flag had that point guard experiment in the beginning of the year, but ended up playing a lot better next to a traditional point guard. So the fit is there. And with someone who we weren't really anticipating going to, I guess, stay in the draft and sign a standard rookie deal with the team that drafts him, there was that consideration of a stash overseas, similar to, I think it was 2 years ago, Juan Nunez with
Yep.
the
With
other
the Spurs.
Spanish point guard with the
Yep.
Spurs, who decided to stay. I don't even think he's being brought back. He was a pretty early second round pick. So the fact that he's intending to sign in Dallas is definitely a great sign. He is a 6'7" point guard, a great playmaker, probably the second or third, maybe the top 3 pick and roll initiators. And also, just being able to stretch the floor efficiently, shooting the 3 nearly by 40% is definitely a great sign in the modern NBA. There are defensive concerns for sure, but when you have Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, and Cooper Flag handling the back or the front court, I think Sergio is in good hands to develop.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so moving on to our final winner. Who's it going to be, Mitch?
Yeah, so, okay. I want to do, while we're here, a quick shout out to Chris Sinek,
Okay.
someone who we were entirely high on going into this process, but just the fact that he's on the Boston Celtics as an emerging, highly talented, power forward center where there is a need. Neemias Queta, solid starting center, may not be the long-term issue. And they're running the ghost of Nikola Vucevic, who looks like a shell of himself, and then Luka Garza in the playoffs. None of those are really long-term answers. And I believe this was the Celtics' only first-round draft pick in this draft. So considering all things, Chris Sinak, a former top 5 recruit, he has insane measurables at 6'11" with, I believe, like a 7'3" wingspan. He could protect the rim. He's a little raw offensively. I think that's fine, especially considering the fact that the Celtics do a great job developing their young players. Think of like Peyton Pritchard. Hugo Gonzalez showed a lot of great flashes. Sam Hauser looks like a real player who's going to stick in the league for another like 5 to 6 years. So I think Chris Sinek is in good hands. And because of the fit and the developmental staff with the Celtics, I think we're a lot higher and more optimistic than we were coming into the draft with Chris Sinek. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit us off, and we can tag team this one, Andrew, because
well, it's bonus winners. It's basically 5 or 6 winners at this point. But hey, we're all for it. So who we got now?
Right. So I think where we're heading. Another quick shout out to Christian Anderson, someone who we were initially low on, but with the LaMelo deal,
I
think
like
he
Anderson,
is
but
a pretty good winner. Yeah, exactly. So they may even bring in a point guard. Who knows, right? They have a $40 million trade exception, but as of right now of this recording, Christian Anderson is at least a mini winner.
Right? I think we were indifferent on him as a prospect. I was higher, you were lower, but both love now the landing spot with LaMelo out of town.
Correct. Yes. All right. So with our final winner, I know we had a lot of winners already, but I guess the third main winner,
bonus
I'd say
winners.
Is Cameron. Yeah, we had some bonus winners, but I think significantly in terms of, just fit, in terms of what he can provide to the main star in Luka Doncic, I think we have no further introduction. It's Cameron Carr, who got selected by the Los Angeles Lakers. He did slide in the draft after being mocked and having multiple rumors that he would go at like the 10 to like and drop no further than 18. And I think he got selected at 24. So, pretty significant drop here for Cameron Carr. But he is a highly athletic 3-and-D wing. The specific archetype other than a lob threat big that Luka Doncic loves to play with, right? So Cameron Carr is that guy. He's a great and efficient three-point shooter. He's hyper athletic, so you can just kind of imagine all the lobs that he's going to catch in the fast break playing next to Luka Doncic. Man, I think if he can develop into that Devin Vassell type player, and maybe even a Trey Murphy at the higher end, steal at pick 24. Andrew, you know more about like the Laker team dynamics, so I'll give you the floor here on closing out the Cameron Carr segment.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is the pressure he relieves defensively. Like, offensively speaking, he's playing more as the 3. The 1 and the 2 are Luka and Reeves. But once we switch to the defensive end of the floor, that's kind of swapping around a little bit, where maybe Luka or Reeves is guarding, a small forward, or if we're talking Luka, maybe even a power forward on the opposing team. And Carr is going to be used to guard against those other fast twitch type of players. Do you want Luka or Austin Reeves guarding Tyrese Maxey, one of the quickest players I've ever seen? Or would you rather have Cameron Carr guarding him, who's going to do a much better job and alleviate so much pressure on the load that Reeves and Luka have to carry? Because those are the Lakers stars right now. We don't have LeBron James back on the team yet. So this is a super important player here, both complementary to Luka and Reeves. Not only are Luka and Reeves super complementary to each other, but this is probably one of the best core pieces we now have to complement where you're trying to build around them. We do still need a lob threat rim running big, absolutely. Someone who can also literally protect the rim better than somebody like a DeAndre Ayton can. We probably need another wing or two. So the construction of the roster isn't done, but this is a great step in the right direction. And it only took us like an extra 150K or something like that to move from 25 to 24 and grab Cameron Carr. You got to do that any day of the week, because we learned in the second round where we didn't have a pick, at least initially early on, and we ended up buying into 56, but we were waiting for Henry Vesar to fall to us, and then Atlanta bought their way in and took him ahead of us. So luckily, we did kind of the opposite in the first round and moved up a spot to make sure we got him, and nobody else swooped in from the Knicks, who I'm assuming many people knew were trying to sell that pick because they didn't want to pay for it. So the Lakers taking that incentive to move up one spot, let the Knicks move back, and the Knicks continue to move backwards from there. But this is just, an excellent fit. He should start to produce some value right away. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't play right away, especially because he represents such a better archetype of prospect than like last year with a Duthiero, who I did think theoretically was also a good fit for complementing like a Luka and a Reeves, a super athletic guy, kind of reminded me of like a Derrick Jones Jr. But if we think back to Derrick Jones Jr., he took a little bit of a while to develop. So maybe there's still some hope for Thiero, but I think Carr is definitely much more expected to really hit the ground running. Mitchell, I love that you mentioned Christian Anderson. I definitely believe that he is a solid winner too. And another shout out I'm going to give, Ryan Conwell, Miami Heat. I was the one that tweeted that Eric Spoelstra was going to pull 3 bench players out of his ass. This is one of them right here. Ryan Conwell, we have him at 29, so that's a first-round grade. He is an absolute bowling ball of a point guard, a little bit bigger than some of those point guards. He's not like short and stocky. He's 6'3". He can shoot well. He can defend well. Get some steals. So I think what the real value obviously coming from him in this spot is going to be is just getting minutes in general. That Miami Heat bench is very thin. I think he shows that he could probably have a pretty good 9-cat stat set. So we've moved him, even though he's drafted in the second round, we have him as a first-round grade. So that's another bonus winner for you guys. I think that ended up becoming like 6 or something like that. But now, see, I'm changing my light behind me from green to red. Now we're going to talk about the losers, Mitchell. And now on this side, the order is going to be reversed. I'm going to go first. You're going to go second. It's supposed to be 3, but we'll probably end up throwing some bonus losers in there. But I guess using the word bonus is probably not the best relative to being losers. But either way, I'm going to take us to number 21 overall on this big board. Kareem Lopez. Now, let me start this by saying I really still like Lopez. I think my love for Lopez as a prospect is why he's still pretty high up on this board on 21. Like, that's nothing to scoff at. However, Memphis, they just drafted Cam Boozer at number 1 overall. Lopez is more of like a small forward, power forward type of player. I look at him a little bit more as a power forward due to his size, pretty big, stocky dude. And even if we call him a small forward, we're talking Cam Boozer, Jalen Wells, Cedric Coward, Isaiah Stewart, Zach Edey, Santi Aldama. That's a lot of competition for him to go up against in Memphis. I would be a lot more confident if maybe he was a guard, but you still got like Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen, and Walter Clayton to deal with on that end as well. But
John Morant too, I guess.
John Morant, of course, for now.
Because they can't get rid of him.
Yeah.
So he's probably staying for another
year.
Maybe.
Right. But I mean, Memphis just retooled their front court, specifically with Beef Stew and Cam Boozer. So adding Lopez into the mix, I mean, I definitely don't blame them. He was the number 1 player available at the time of them drafting. So, no harm, no foul there. But for us in Dynasty, it stings a little bit. You would really want him to go somewhere that was a little bit more needy of a forward. Like for example, if he was still there when the Lakers were picking, I easily think that they would have picked him. Maybe some other teams in that range could have used him. Perhaps even the Spurs getting him or something along those lines might have been a pretty good fit too, because they just have like, Harrison Barnes, who is still serviceable, but what is he now, Mitch? Like 34, 35 or 33? Something around there.
Like that,
yeah. Barnes is on the older side. So, and they have Keldon Johnson. So I like Lopez's chances more there. There's just more bodies in Memphis. And there's still, Gigi Jackson and Taylor Hendricks. I'm not really looking into them as much, but, especially Santi and Cam Boozer is definitely my biggest point of concern here with Lopez. Still really like him as a prospect, but it might take a little while to see some more minutes. I would love to say that we might see more, silly season minutes out of him in like February onwards or something along those lines. But with the way that the tanking rules changed, I don't really know what silly season is going to look like from February onwards next year. It might look completely different from what we are normally used to. So that's who I have as my first loser from the NBA draft. He moved from the team. I don't really know if his rank moved down that much, but I think it definitely would have skyrocketed up into tier 5 if he went to a landing spot that I liked.
Yeah, I think he was initially in our teens, so he might have dropped
to
the 20s. Yeah. Speaking of this tier, if we go all the way down, someone who I was really excited about too, Bennett Sturts.
Ooh.
So this is the second loser.
Tough.
I was so excited when they first announced him to go to the Grizzlies, and then they traded back. The Thunder bought themselves in. The Thunder's traded 2 additional second-round picks on top of 17 to take Bennett Sturts at 16. And I was like, oh my gosh, the Grizzlies, yes, he can be the primary ball handler or at least fight for those minutes against like Walter Clayton or Ty Jerome, because I see Bennett Sturts as a higher upside play and version of Ty Jerome. And already how Ty Jerome is such a fantasy-friendly player. Mm-hmm. But if you can upscale that with Bennett Sturts, who has even more on-ball juice, right? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm all for it. John Morant probably out the way, at least until the end of the year, or like by the end of the year. And then we hear the news that the pick has been traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I'm like, no, because this is probably the worst case scenario for his development. And I get it from the Thunder side, right? You're letting go of Isaiah Joe, Lou Dort. Aaron Wiggins isn't really a ball handler, but Aaron Wiggins as well, at least in the guard rotation. And the really big downfall of the OKC Thunder was when J-Dub was out, their secondary ball handler.
Mm-hmm.
AJ Mitchell was out, their backup 6-man type ball handler. Topic is still there too, right? And then Jared McCain also, I believe, got injured. So Bennett Sturts is really a safety valve type pick if this kind of happens again, right? Worst case scenario, all the ball handlers get injured again. And then who do you have at your disposal? You have Bennett Sturts. What I don't like about that, at least from a fantasy perspective, is throughout the season, you're going to have to rely on all these injuries to compound for Bennett Sturts to get that opportunity as at least a secondary ball handler, because it's for sure going to be Shea's show moving forward, right? So then it's like, okay, is he going to be, I want to say, more prioritized over Topic? Maybe. That's debatable, right? Topic was also a lottery pick 2 years ago, but he had, the testicular cancer, the ACL injury, all these, right? But he's finally getting healthy now, which we like to see, right? And that's for the third or fourth string point guard spot, right? He has to beat out Topic there. He's not going to beat out AJ Mitchell. He's not going to beat out J-Dub. And SGA is the primary ball handler. And they even let Jared McCain handle and bring up the ball too when those injuries were happening. And they may already trust Jared McCain, of course, because he has playoff experience. He's been in the league 2 years already. So my highly rated prospect of Bennett Sturts early in the cycle, and we had him in like the late lotto, mid-teens, and now we have to drop him all the way back down to 25 because really he's just relying on injuries at this point and maybe a new home, but that's not going to happen at least for at least a year, right? At least a year or two. Ideal landing spot other than the Grizzlies that I was hoping for was Miami because of the Giannis trade. There's a gaping hole there. Provides 3-point shooting next to Bam and Giannis, which is basically non-existent. Would have been that perfect fit. But I believe Conwell is plugging and playing into that role. They traded those picks at 13, so that wasn't going to happen. The Milwaukee Bucks took that pick to make that Giannis deal. So, so with Bennett Sturts, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait for all those fans out there. All right, so what's our last loser that you want to discuss?
I got to go up to 18. We got to go to Charlotte. Hans Steinbach. Now, obviously, it didn't seem as bad prior to Naz Reid going to Charlotte, but even when he was drafted, my initial thought was, I honestly thought Charlotte had a pretty good thing going with that center rotation of Moussa Diabate and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Like, I really didn't see that much of an issue with it. And Diabate really meshed like super well with the first unit alongside Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller, Con Canepola, and formerly LaMelo Ball. But now things are about to change. So with this new kind of makeup for the team, he's competing now with Diabate, who's still under contract. Obviously, Ryan Kalkbrenner is there on the second year of his rookie scale deal. You have Naz Reid being moved into town. Miles Bridges is technically a power forward, and guys like Grant Williams are still there too. So there's a lot of competition that he has to put up with for front court minutes at the center spot in Charlotte, or at least maybe at the power forward spot. And what's confusing to me as well is it's like I view somebody like Ryan Kalkbrenner as like a specialty, like a specialized tool. He only plays like in the low 20s minutes, but he is the only 7-footer on this team. Steinbach, Naz Reid, and Diabate, Mitch, you could probably argue all three of them are a little undersized for the center position. All three of them could easily get away with playing power forward as well. So you would assume somebody with such a high defensive pedigree like Ryan Kalkbrenner will probably still get his minutes. You need to have that different look with a 7-footer, somebody who can actually protect the rim well. I mean, Steinbach and Diabate almost kind of represent the same thing to me of like rebounding machines, but obviously Steinbach is far more offensively talented than Diabate is, far more. Can handle much more of an offensive usage load, can make his free throws, can shoot threes. So that might be his saving grace here. So does he perhaps move above Diabate, and the center rotation is like a little bit of Naz Reid plus Steinbach and Kalkbrenner, something along those lines? I'm not sure. But just the fact that he has to compete with this many honestly good players in the front court, like I don't have an issue with Diabate or Kalkbrenner, who I really like. I honestly like Diabate too. For 9-cat, his game is actually pretty solid. Naz Reid, of course, I've always been a huge fan of. So lots of bodies to compete with in that front court. And you just got to hope that it's either his offense that really carries him above Diabate, or there's just a specific look that Charlotte's going for, maybe for floor spacing, something along those lines, that gets Steinbach more minutes. I'm not sure what that is, but he's not a rim protector. I mean, of the guys I've just discussing, the only defensively oriented big on this team is Ryan Kalkbrenner. So I think his minutes are still there, but these kind of more offensive guys or like rebounding machine type of guys are going to be fighting for minutes here. So we will see how that shakes out. All right, Mitchell. So if you don't have anything to add on Steinbach, maybe you do. Is there any honorable mention kind of losers you wanted to shout out, or should we move on to the next phase of this podcast?
Yeah, unfortunately, if you go up a little bit on Adai Mara, we just heard news.
This is tough for Mitch and I here. This is tough.
Yeah.
Walk away,
so,
even. This is tough. All right, go ahead.
Even though, 1 hour ago, it's been reported that the Thunder intend to renegotiate a 3-year deal with Isaiah Hartenstein. So there was the hopes, you were on the live stream. I was both thinking that the selection of Adai Mara suggests that iHart is on his way out. However, with the recent news, they plan to re-sign him. So I think Adai provides a unique skill set that he'll still build his way into the rotation. However, there's going to be more minutes to fight against, considering Isaiah Hartenstein is such a core piece for the OKC Thunder. And it's just a bummer, honestly, because I really enjoy Mara as a prospect. And this is not the draft class if you want to draft a center, because
it just isn't.
Adai is still going to be that number one center off the board. And then you go into Hans Steinbach, who's also not in the most great position for.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sign that both of the best two centers on our big board are in the losers section of this podcast right now. Not a good sign.
Yeah, it's really a point guard and a wing draft. Maybe some power forwards, but majority point guard driven draft. And point guards are some of the most valuable archetypes in fantasy basketball, especially in 9-category leagues. So don't get discouraged by any means with us saying that this is not a center class. However, if you are looking for an ideal landing spot for some of the top centers in this draft class, you are not going to get it this year. And with that being said, I'll just close that out with Adai Mara as the honorable mention as a fantasy basketball loser post-draft.
Oh, like I said, that one does still sting quite a bit for me, Mitchell. But what we're going to do now, we're going to move on to the second half, which is going to go on to our Patreon, where we will be discussing the winners and losers from a points league perspective. So we will be linking that on social media and on our Discord. If you would like to find it, check it out, because our points league Dynasty Big Board is also going to be going on to our Patreon as well. So thank you for watching this episode. Please join us for the second half on Patreon. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. We got all sorts of fun content coming out, covering these rookies, covering our soon Dynasty Rank update that will be happening next month, Summer League, all that. We will be here to talk about it. So thank you for everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.